Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today is week 3 of our hand and dexterity exercise class. I hope you've enjoyed it so far. Today we will be using our tea towel like last time and our little cushion. And then also today we will be using paper with these kind of, let me put this in the back so you can see more. Paper with ascending and descending kind of lines. So you can see the lines aren't entirely straight. They go from big to small, then small to big to small, small to big, and so on. Last class, I mentioned about having something like this ready for today. So hopefully you've got it. If not, don't worry. When we get to the handwriting part, you're welcome to take a piece of lined paper and just draw some lines for yourself. It doesn't have to be equal lines necessarily, but we're basically going from big to small, then small to big to small, all the way down the sheet today. Before we begin today, I wanted to remind you that the series are recorded. So if you did want to revisit the class at a later date, you're welcome to do so on our YouTube channel. The classes from the last 2 weeks have already been uploaded. So if you are new to the class today and you missed the previous classes, you're welcome to go onto the YouTube channel, which you can just search on YouTube, Parkinson Society BC, all in one word. I'm just typing it out here in the chat box for you to see. Parkinson Society BC, all in one word. And that's our YouTube channel name. And then you'll see on that YouTube channel, there are recordings from the last 2 classes for hand and dexterity if you want to revisit that. And also, before I begin today, I do want to also promote our upcoming Globo Symposium series. So I'm not sure if you've seen it, but in November, we've got 3 talks coming up with really excellent speakers, which took quite a bit of effort to get. So definitely have a look on the website and see if there's anything there that strikes your interest. We've got environmental pollutants and Parkinson's talk by Dr. Bas Bloom. We got pioneering Parkinson's research from the American Parkinson's Disease Association Chief Scientific Officer, and also dystonia and pain management in Parkinson's. So those are the 3 topics in the Global Symposium coming up in November if anybody is interested in signing up. Okay, well, let's get started. So I'm going to move back a little bit. It's a little bit brighter in this room today, so hopefully you can see everything okay. I'm just turning up the brightness here. I think that's probably a little better. Now, I know we have a couple of new folks joining us today, so if you are new and you haven't done the class before, don't worry, that's absolutely fine. Just follow along, and if anything feels a little bit difficult and you want to practice, you can always look on our YouTube channel and practice some of those hand dexterity skills we've got. Okay, so we're going to start sitting. Now, I'm in a wheelie chair, but ideally at home, you shouldn't be in a wheelie chair. But the reason I've got a wheelie chair, just so it's easier for me to move around and for you to see. But you can see here, my back is not touching the chair. I'm sitting up nice and tall, and I'm at the very front of my seat. So that way I can really think about elongating my spine. And we're going to start with some shoulder rolls here. Now, as we do our class today, I want you to be a little bit more conscious about your posture and the way that your back is, your arms are, because even though we're working on hand dexterity, the movement and strength that comes from that actually relates quite a lot to your posture and your shoulders and those kind of things, because you can imagine if you're in this kind of position, it's very difficult to exert force and move your arms. So it's important that we work on the entire torso here. So just roll those shoulders back, nice big circles all the way up to your ears and all the way back. Sitting up nice and tall. And then we're going to add in some elbow circles. So this time we're circling the elbows out to the side, nice big circles. Of course, if you have a bit of sore shoulders or any other issues you've got, you can, of course, modify any of the movements we're having. and circle a bit lower or smaller if that feels better for you. Nicely done. And then we're going to do the entire arm this time, all the way back. Now, again, if you've got shoulder issues, maybe do a little bit lower. That's okay too. You don't have to necessarily go all the way up if you don't want to. Do what you can, sitting up nice and tall, shoulders nice and squared forward. So try not to lean down to the side. We want to keep the shoulders nice and level. 2 more. And then rest the arms. Still sitting up tall. We're going to do some neck rolls, chin to the chest, and we're just going to roll side to side like this. Only the bottom of the neck roll right now. We're doing a half semicircle. We're not going all the way up yet. We're just doing a half semicircle. And you can feel free to do this slower if you like. And then we're going to go all the way up overhead now, all the way to the back. We're just circling in one direction so far. So we're not going both ways, just circling in one direction all the way. Good. And then we're going to go the other way, circling your neck in the other direction. Nice big circles. Take your time here. Don't feel like you have to do this very fast. Just warming up the neck. One more. Good. And rest. Okay, we're going to now float those arms up in front of us like so, palms facing down, shoulders away from the ears. We're going to squeeze the elbows back, squeezing the shoulder blades together, and bring the arm forward. And again, squeezing the shoulder blades back and bring the arms forward. Try not to let the shoulders lift up to the ears. Nice long neck, nice wide rows here. Try not to let the elbows come down beside you. We want to keep them out to the side, nice and wide. Squeezing the shoulder blades, so from the side. You can see I'm squeezing the shoulder blades as I'm doing this movement here. Okay, let's do 3 more here. 2 more. 1 more. Good. And now we're going to turn the palms up, bend the elbows down towards our ribs, and we're going to do those reverse rows in a narrow position. So kind of like you're holding a tray and you're pulling that tray towards you, but you're squeezing the elbows back, but they're close to your ribs rather than the wide ones we were doing. We'll bring them down and your palms are facing up. Squeezing the shoulder blades together. 3 more. 3. 2. Last one. And rest. Okay, we're going to lift one arm up. We're going to start with our sensory loading. Take your other hand. We're going to go to the top of the shoulder and we're going to squeeze down the length of the arm. Nice gentle squeezes, not forgetting about the fingers. You want the palms, the fingers as well, all the way back up. So as we're doing this, we're just loading the sensation here. We're doing some sensory loading of the arm before we get going to draw some more attention to this arm. So that way when we get going, hopefully things will be a little easier. Squeezing the entire length of the arm. Nice and gentle. Not forgetting about the palms, the fingers, the thumb. Good, and rest. We're gonna do the same thing on the other side. Float the other arm up. Other hand, start at the top of the shoulder, squeezing down the length of the arm. Just like the other one we did, try to keep the shoulders away from the ears. And you're squeezing the thumb, the fingers, the palm, all the way back up and then down again. So just sensory loading into the arm. Now, I forgot to mention at the beginning that if you are new to the class today, Our entire class is done in sitting, so you don't need to be standing for any of these because we are doing a hand and dexterity class. And you'll probably find if you're standing up the entire time, you'll get tired quite quickly. So it's a good idea to be sitting down for this as long as we're sitting up nice and tall. Other arm, patting down the arm this time. And as we're doing the class today, you'll probably notice that I have a little table in front of me where the current laptop is on. And I will be resting my elbows on that table as we go along in the class today. And you're welcome to do the same if you have a table in front, or if you have an armrest of your chair and you're using that to prop your elbows on, that's fine as well. Because at some points you'll find that your shoulders are going to get quite sore because you're lifting up the arms the entire time. So it might be a good idea to rest them on something. Okay, flipping over, other side, same thing, patting down the arm. Now, remember, we're not smacking our arm, right? We're doing a light pat. So we don't want to see anybody do this. We're doing light pats all the way down the arm, just to wake up that sensation a little bit more. And then we're going to switch sides. Other arm, patting all the way down. Not forgetting about the fingers, the back of the palm, the wrist, and all the way down again. And then we're going to flip the arm over, same thing. Nice gentle pats all the way down the arm. Okay, and rest there. I'm going to come closer. We're going to take our hands, we're going to clasp them together like so. And then keeping your elbows where they are, you're going to draw some big figure of eights with your wrist. So both hands clasped together, and you're drawing big figure of eights here, warming up the wrist. A few more. And rest. Okay. Now, we're going to do squeezes with the hands. So making a fist with both of your hands. Nice squeeze, and then we're going to open up nice and wide as you possibly can between those fingers, flattening that palm, and then coming in again. As we do our exercises today, I want you to really check out your symmetry on both sides, okay? So if you find that you've got one hand that feels a little stiffer, a little weaker than the other one, I want it to be your goal today to try to match both of them. So try to get the weaker, stiffer hand to open up just as wide as your other hand, aiming for symmetry as much as you can. Nicely done. Do a few more. Keep trying to open those fingers, really lengthen those fingertips, almost like you got light coming out of each of the fingertips and you want to point them everywhere in the room. Good, nicely done. Let's do one more. Good, okay, this time we're gonna add in the arms. I'm just moving back. We're gonna bring the hands into fist by your armpits, and then from here, we're gonna push the arms forward, opening the palm as wide as you can possibly open them, and then pull back into that fist position. Same thing, pushing as sharply as you can, opening the palm like you're pushing something away from you, and then you're pulling something back towards you. So aim for this effort level here, you guys. Big push, opening the hand, and then a big pull, grab and pull. Again, push. So imagine there's something in front of you, you're pushing away from you, and then you're grabbing and pulling back towards you. And again, big push. And pull. Let's do 5 more. Push. And pull. Push. pull, 3 more, push, pull, 2 more, nice and sharp, and pull, last one, push, pull, and rest. Okay, so we are now going to work on the finger opposition position. Whoops, let me move this up a little bit. Our finger opposition movement that we did last time. So we're gonna start with the palm nice and wide as you can possibly make it, especially aiming for symmetry on both sides. So I don't wanna see one hand do this and the other hand be nice and wide. We want both to be equally wide. And then you're gonna take the tip of your index finger, you're gonna touch your thumb without the other fingers curling or coming in together. You wanna keep them open. And then we're going to do the same with the middle finger to thumb. So the aim here is opening the hand as wide as you can, and you're trying not to move any of the fingers that aren't supposed to be moving. So whatever finger is not coming in to touch the thumb should still be in that wide open position. And then reverse. Little finger. Really open that hand, open the hand, straighten those fingers, ring finger coming in, middle finger, index finger, and then you keep repeating it. Now, I know we've been doing this for a couple weeks now, so the challenge here today is you're gonna go a little faster, if you can, without compromising the amplitude of the movement or the amount of stretch you got in your hand. So if you're doing it faster and you're starting to do this, you need to slow down again, okay? So we don't want any hands to be like this. We want them to stay in that wide position, especially the thumb. So a lot of times our thumb stays in, but you want to make sure the thumb opens back out as well. So you want to try to flatten your hand every time you do this. I just noticed here because my elbows are resting on the table here as I'm moving. My laptop's also shaking a little bit, so I apologize about that. Hopefully it's not making anybody dizzy. Really think about the symmetry here, guys. Have a look at your hands. Are they looking the same, or is one hand getting a lot more cramped than the other one? If it is, see if you can go a little slower and open up the palm and the fingers, lengthen them a little more. How are we doing? Keep going. Are you still sitting up nice and tall, or are we like this? Try to get the shoulders away from the ears so you can see what I mean about resting your elbows on something, because imagine if you're like this the entire time. Good, nicely done. Let's do a few more. Keep trying to spread the palm. Elongate the fingers. Finish off wherever you are and have a rest. You can shake out the hands. You can open and close them a few times. You can squeeze them a few times if they're feeling a little sore. Okay, our next exercise, we are going to bring the fingers together. So opposite to what we were doing just now, we're not spreading them, we're squeezing them together, but you are trying to keep the fingers as long as possible. So because we're squeezing them in, we're not doing this, we're not bending them. We're keeping them as long as you can. Imagine you press them up against a window, okay? So you want this to be nice and flat. So from the side, you can see the hand is flat. We're not curving or twisting it any way. We want the palms to be flat, the fingers to be flat, and they're all squeezing in. Then from here, we're going to open the first one space without curving in. We're trying to keep the palm as flat as you can. Imagine you're pressing against the window and coming back in. Then the second space you're opening, you're keeping all the other fingers pressed in together from the side. Can you see it's flat? I'm not doing this or this. I'm keeping the palm flat as if you're sliding them along the glass window. Then the next space over, you're opening, keeping the palm flat. Then the next space over, opening, keeping the palm flat. So don't let your pinky fingers move forward or back. Imagine they're sliding along that glass window. And then reversing it. Same thing, sliding along the glass window. Then the next space over. Then the next space over. And the thumb. So with this one, we have also been doing this for a couple of weeks. So if you're getting really familiar with this, I would like to challenge you to go a little faster. But again, if you're going faster and you're starting to do this, then you need to slow down again and reset your intentions, okay? Because it's really important that we're keeping the hand nice and flat as we're doing this. And fingers nice and long. Really think about you sliding the hand against a glass window or a glass door or some kind of a surface. If you're new to this or you find this really difficult, don't worry, do it slower, absolutely fine. Trying to get the technique, or if it's really impossible, you can put your hand, oops, let me move it aside, onto a table and do this movement on a table. I know it's a little bit of a sunshine on my fingers, so hopefully you can see. But you can aim to do this on an actual table, but of course you can go slower. Because if you're doing it on the table, you're pressing the fingers against the table, and it's a little bit easier because the table's kind of facilitating that flattening of the palm. So up to you which version you want to do. So whatever level you're doing, challenge yourself, whether that's going faster, whether that's pressing your hand against a table and then taking the hand off the table and trying a free hand like this, or whatever works for you. But you're aiming for the long fingers, the flat palm, and you're squeezing all of the fingers together when they're not being moved, right? So you're only choosing to open one space at a time. We'll do a few more here. Remember, you don't have to do it quite as quick. You're welcome to do it slower, but you're trying to keep the palm flat, especially the thumb. Don't let the thumb come in. One more round wherever you are. And rest. Whew. You can feel free to shake out your hands. You can squeeze in between your palm if you find that's a little sore, wherever you're needing to relax that hand, or you can even squeeze and open a few times, see if that helps. Okay. So hopefully your hands are nice and warm. Our next one is going to be using our tea towel. So remember, when you're using a tea towel, ideally the towel shouldn't be big. So if you were using a bath towel, this exercise is going to be very difficult. So The smaller the towel, the better. But of course, with that said, if your towel is way too small, like this size, then you're probably not going to get a lot of out of the exercise. So you want it to be big enough that you can actually work on this technique without it being so big that it was completely impossible for you to do. So we're going to hold on to the corner of the towel, and your fingers are going to face, or sorry, not fingers, your palm is going to face downwards, and you're kind of holding the towel in this fashion with 2 fingers. And then from here, you're going to use your fingers and you're going to scrunch the towel into a ball in your hand. And the most important thing here is you want to try to make sure that you're not just moving one finger, right? You don't want the fingers to get stuck. You want all of the fingers to be moving. And then when you fold it up into a ball in your fist and you can't go anymore, I'm going to get you to throw and catch. Still with the palm facing down. So let me move back. You're throwing, catching. So when you catch, you're catching on the way down. I'm just going to shut this a little bit so you can see me. So throw, catch, and then you're going to shake it out and go to the corner again, and you're going to restart. So try not to do this kind of thing to try to get the towel into a ball, or try not to use your shirts because it's a little easier that way, but you want to try to do it freehand like so, with your fingers and your palm dangling down so that gravity is kind of pulling on the towel. And you're squeezing it in. And then we're going to go throw, catch, and then shake it out and restart again. So for those who have been here for the last 2 classes, hopefully you're starting to feel pretty familiar with this the scrunch and throw movement. Remember to use all of your fingers, right? So we're not just using 2 fingers or 1 finger, but you're trying to use all of them. How are we doing with this one? Try to use all your fingers as you're scrunching up the towel. And when you're throwing and catching, remember we're throwing and catching down as well. So we want to avoid catching this way or with the other hand. We're doing the same hand for the moment. If you need a break, you can feel free to shake out the hand if it's getting quite sore. You can shake out the arm if it's getting quite sore. So feel free to take a break as needed. Who knew such a simple looking task could be relatively challenging? So you can probably imagine here, if you've got a big thick bath towel, very difficult with this exercise, mostly because you can barely scrunch up any fabric in your hand. But also equally, if it's a very small fabric, you're not really going to get enough practice. So it kind of needs to be like a tea towel size or a kitchen towel size. Oops. Okay, so keep going. If you are someone who's struggling, you can put the towel onto a table, And you can scrunch up this way as well, trying to get all of your fingers involved. So I don't want to see anyone just doing 2 fingers. You want all of the fingers involved. Okay, and then you can spread it back out and restart again. If you think that's easier for you, if you need to place your hand against something rather than free holding it like so, then you can choose to do that as well to just help you get some movement into those fingers before you can do the full version. Let's do one more on this hand. Wherever you are, let's do one more, and then we're going to switch sides. Okay, and whenever you're finished with it, we're going to switch to the other side, and you're going to do the same thing, holding onto the corner, fingers and palms facing downwards. Using all the fingers, you're going to scrunch the towel into your hand. And then once you've done so, you're going to throw and catch. When you catch, remember you're going downwards, catching downwards. Try not to go this way or using the other hand. And then you shake it out and then you restart from the corner again. Remember, if you absolutely need to, you can feel free to use the table if that works for you. But you're trying to move all the fingers, okay? Main point, moving all the fingers here. Check in with your posture. Are we sitting up tall or are we like this? Are the shoulders up to the ears now, or do you have long neck still? You might find that one hand is a little harder, and that's absolutely fine. You can, go slower on that side. It's not a race. You don't have to go very fast. The main point is you trying to make a meaningful a movement with those fingers. You're using all the fingers and you're trying to scrunch up the towel into your one hand. And then toss and catch. Sometimes the catching, the throwing and catching coordination can feel a little strange as well, specifically the throw. So you can work on any of these areas that you find is a little more challenging for you. You can do more repetitions of that if you like. For example, if the throwing and catching is pretty easy for you, but you find the scrunching to be harder, you can maybe just do the scrunching if you like and omit the throw and catch. Although sometimes it's kind of nice to release those fingers as you're doing the throw and catch. Remember, just like before, if it's really tough for you, you can place the fabric on a table and use all your hands. So not just, one finger or 2 fingers. You're using all of the fingers to try to scrunch up into a small ball. And then once you've done that, you can spread it out and then do it again. Of course, if you don't have a table, doing it against your shirt is also the same, so that's okay as well. And then back out. Good, let's do a few more. Whichever version you're doing, we're gonna do a few more. Last one, wherever you are. You can finish off the last one. And then you can rest and you can put your towel away. Okay, next we are grabbing our cushion. So you remember the small cushion we're using. So this is just a cushion for my couch. Ideally, you don't want anything too big or bulky because it's a little bit harder for you to hold on to. But I'm using a little cushion for my couch, and we're gonna hold on to the bottom of the cushion with our fingers long. So the grip looks like this. My fingers are long, and you can see my thumb. Whoops, my thumb is long as well. So essentially, I'm holding it like that. Yeah, so long, kind of like crab pincers, if you will. And you're holding onto the bottom. And then what we're gonna do in a second is we're gonna open both of those hands so that the pillow falls with gravity, and you're gonna catch it at the top, but in this position. So we don't want to be going like this. We don't want to curve our fingers in, right? We don't want our thumb and fingers to curve in. We want them to stay nice and long. So we start at the bottom, nice and long. And then we come back, nice and long. So think crab pincers. So if I go from the top view, you're doing this. Try to keep those fingers together if you can. Try not to grab with your fingers bent. How are we doing with this one? Long fingers. On your next one, when you catch the top, I'm going to challenge you to throw. Oops, let me do that again. Throw and catch the bottom in that same long finger position. So try not to grab hold like this. Long fingers as you catch the top and the bottom. So try not to grab like this, long fingers. Long fingers. Catching the top and the bottom with those long finger grips. So these crab pincer type grips. Keeping those fingers together if you can, try not to spread them out. Don't want them to be like this. Try to pinch those fingers together. Let's do a few more. Let's do 6 more wherever you are. In your own time, 6 more. And then when you're done, shake out the hands, shake out those fingers. We got 1 more with the cushion before we're moving on. This time, we are going to hold on to the cushion like so. So you've got your, so kind of still in that long grip, but we're holding it so that your thumbs are facing up. And then what you're going to do is you're going to keep your arms still. So we're not moving the arms, we're keeping the arms still. And we're going to use our wrist, and we're going to turn the cushion over and catch. Maybe if I move this way, I'll do it on an angle. So got my thumb up, my fingers straight at the bottom like this. Imagine your elbows are stuck in this position. We're not moving them. We're not doing this. We're keeping them here, and you're turning and catching. So you're using your wrist to turn towards you. So you're turning the cushion towards you and then catching like that. Trying to keep those elbows still. If you find it difficult to do, you can place your arms onto like a wall or onto a table, so then you don't move it. And then you're turning it towards you, like so. So you're turning it like this, and then you're catching it. Hopefully that makes sense. Imagine your arms are stuck in that position, only the wrist is turning. If it's difficult, you can go slower, although I feel like sometimes the slower is a little harder, because at least the quicker version, you're kind of tossing it. Whereas if you're going slower, you're using your fingers to kind of rotate around, which might be more difficult. So you're turning the pillow towards you. Who knew there were so many exercises you can do with your couch cushion? Try to keep the arms where they are. And you're just turning with the wrist here. And try not to do a lot of turns. You only want one turn, so you're just flipping it once. How are we doing? Do we hate this one? So you're turning it towards yourself just once. Try not to move the arm, so it's just the wrists, the forearms, but not the entire arm. Oops. Of course, if you got a rounder shaped cushion, it might be slightly more difficult if it's not like a more flat cushion. Let's do two more. One more. And rest. You can drop those arms, put your cushion away, and let's do some writing practice. Okay, shake out those arms if you need. Right, so turning my screen down so you can see. Now, this is my paper. You can see that I've got the lines are different today. So let me go like this so you can see the whole thing. You can see today that the lines are large to small, then small to large, large to small, then small to large. So we're kind of moving, we're moving the margins now. And so what we're gonna do today, you'll probably remember last time we did small letters, right? So last time we did straight margins and we did small letters. And the purpose of this was to make sure we're touching the top and the bottom margin every time we write. So you can see we're touching the top and the bottom margin and the middle margin as we write. So we're aiming for amplitude of the task here. Of course, with bigger letters, with capital letters, it's easier because you're just touching the top and bottom margin as you go along. So today, with the lines going from big to small, then small to big, then big to small to big, it's a little tougher because we're changing the shape of our letters as we go along. Okay, so I'm gonna move a little closer. So I'm going to try to write backwards again so you can see. So today we are going to do our first and last name. So you're writing your first and last name. So the first letter is a capital letter, and then the rest are small letters of your first and last name. Excuse my writing here. It's challenging to write upside down. So first name and your last name. So you're writing your first name and last name. I've just written first and last, but for you, you're writing your first name and your last name, trying to touch the top and the bottom margins as the margins change in shape. And of course, once you get this technique down pretty well in terms of touching the margins, you're welcome to make the writing faster. But if you're going so fast that you're not able to get the margins, then I would recommend for you to slow down again. So you can see my example here. First name, last name, first name, last name, as the margins get smaller. So again, you're writing your actual first name and last name. I'm just writing first and last to show you the example. You're touching the margins, you can see. As the margins increase in shape or decrease in shape, you're still touching the top and the bottom margins here. And once you feel like you've got the technique down, you're of course welcome to speed up the writing. But if you're speeding up the writing and you're finding that your writing is deteriorating, you need to go slower again. Your first and last name, trying to touch the top and the bottom margins as you go along. So remember, if your writing is starting to get smaller and smaller and you're no longer touching the margin, then you need to slow it down again, because this issue of smaller writing is not necessarily just that the writing is small, but it's also got to do with the speed of the writing. So the quicker you go, the more the bradykinesia kicks in, and the more likely you are to have smaller and smaller amplitude of movement. So think of this as an amplitude exercise. Even though it's a writing exercise, the same principles apply as if you're doing an exercise class for the entire body. We're working on amplitude here by using a visual target. You can see here, the letters get smaller, the letters get bigger, but I'm still touching the margins as we go along. How are we doing with this one? Hopefully you're doing okay. Thinking about this exercise as an amplitude exercise, remember? Writing your first name and last name, trying to touch the top and the bottom margins of the lines that you've drawn for yourself. Oops, my A now looks like a bit of a Q upside down, but that's okay. So remember, you can make this faster if you feel like you've got the technique down. But if your writing is getting smaller and less legible, then you need to slow it down again. Although I shouldn't say if your letters are getting smaller, because they should with the margins, but I just mean as in if the letters are getting so small that they're no longer touching the margins, then we need to slow down. You want to always think about amplitude of this movement here, touching the top and the bottom margins. I know my camera's a little slanted, so it's hard to see, but I'll just hold up the paper so you can see so far. You can see that it goes from big to small, small to big, big to small, but regardless of that, all the letters are touching the margin, except for the area where the A started to look like a Q, but you get what I mean, all the way down the sheet. So you're writing your first and your last name. Working on the changes of the margins here, the changing sizes of the margin. Always trying to touch the top and the bottom margins of the paper, of the lines you've created for yourself. If by now you're feeling pretty confident, maybe try to speed up the writing, still thinking about the margins. Oh, I think my pen's running out again. So if you are finding that your margins are hard to follow, slow it down, or you might need to make your margins slightly bigger. Even if they're getting smaller in size, you can start with an extra large margin, which might help. So that way, when the margins get smaller, they're still relatively large. And of course, your margins don't have to be perfectly in line with a ruler. You can do whichever size margin you would like, as long as the margins are changing shape. It doesn't really matter. As long as they're changing size, it doesn't really matter because you are following the margins anyway. So you are trying to get your letters to touch the top and the bottom margins of whatever lines you created for yourself. Regardless of whether it's perfectly shaped or not, it doesn't really matter. You're just working on changing the sizing of your lettering. Hopefully you're following along and it's not too difficult. Remember, it's not necessarily about speed. You can go slower if you find that your control is not as good when you're going faster. Just aiming to touch the top and the bottom of the margins of the line. How are we doing here? Hopefully you're okay, working on the margins. I'm just coming up to I'm just starting my last line here. So whenever you've done the whole page, you can stop. Okay. Whenever you're finished, you can stop and you can see here. This is my lettering, so you can see that the margins change shape. But regardless of what shape the margin is changing to, however big or small, my letters are always touching the top and the bottom of the margins regardless. You can see that. That's what we're working on here. So for next class, for your margins, previously we were doing larger margins. So when we were doing the straight margins, we're going back to the straight margins. When we were doing the straight margins, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 little rows making up one big row. Remember that? But for next time, I want you to do 2. So we're doing half of that. We're doing 2 rows as one big row instead for next week. Okay, so we're going back to the straight margins. Today, we did the changing shape of the margins. Next week, we are going back to the straight margins, but instead of our 1, 2, 3, 4 little rows making up one big row, we're going to do 1, 2, 2 rows making up one big row, if that makes sense. So the margins are going to get smaller as we practice. Okay, well, that's it. You are done. I hope you enjoyed that class, and keep practicing the writing if you'd like to, or keep practicing any of the other techniques we've learned in the class today. And the recording will be uploaded shortly onto the YouTube channel. So you are, of course, welcome to review the recording and practice some more in your own time if you like. Okay, so next time, same place, same time, and we are doing our normal margins, normal straight margins, but 2 rows. So you're doing 2. So if this is a blank piece of paper, you're going to do 2 rows as one big margin for next time. Okay, that's it. Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a great afternoon and enjoy your weekend. I will see you next week. Bye. Bye for now, everyone. You're very welcome. Thanks for joining. Bye.